The entity's cruelest joke. Survivors are also killers in Dead by Daylight. This is going to be an odd video to those who are not familiar with the gameplay of Dead by Daylight, but I do hope you will be able to follow with my reasoning in the video. And to those who are acquainted with the goings of the game, this is a welcomed hello to you. This should be, if anything, an interesting thought. So what if the survivors in the game are also killers themselves? I had this thought after a very rough few matches of playing solo queue Survivor, and in those matches a few things kept happening which sparked my attention towards the subject. To name a major one, survivor toxicity. This can just be interpreted as a survivor trolling to get their own fun, out of messing with the killer and to bring their fellow survivors grief and frustration, of course. But I wanted to stretch my thinking here and think outside of the box. What if the behavior shown by these people is the behavior the survivors have in the game? Some of them, anyway. Eventually, survivors start displaying hostility towards one another, losing interest in survival, and becoming darker in instinct, enjoying the suffering of others over the hope for escape. I have a few reasons for why this could be possible. As we know, the entity feeds on the suffering of the survivors, their hope, and their light to sustain itself. As a survivor is constantly sacrificed, they eventually lose that light and are caught into the void, now husks of their former selves. My theory is based in part here, that the entity consuming what made them hopeful has now made them into the things they run from. In a game of cat and mouse, the mouse realized it is cornered. It stopped running, and now it runs towards the danger, seeking the thrill and the suffering of its chaser. It is no longer prey, it is now the predator. In other words, the survivors eventually become fed up and start rebelling against the killer. With their hope gone, they now know the inevitability of their stay in the realm. They welcome death and run towards the killer, seeking its suffering, blinding the killer, and using pallets as a way to hurt them or annoy them, keeping the killers from doing their jobs directly given to them, not for survival, but for the thrill and the need to make them pay. The entity would naturally want to put an end to this behavior, but what if the survivors being this aggressive is something the entity does secretly enjoy? The suffering they cause the killers, who the entity itself has no remorse over tormenting, are now being tormented for its own amusement. The best part of it all is that it was all made possible by the entity itself. By consuming what made a survivor good, the entity paves the way for the bad behavior the survivors will then display. Yes, it gets less food, but the suffering may be sustenance enough for it to have. Hence the entity's cruel grand design in full fruition, a joke to both the killers and the survivors. The survivors becoming killers in their own ranks, killing each other with toxic behavior and abandon, and then going after the killers and making their jobs a living hell, within a living hell. All while the entity has a snide chuckle in the sky, enjoying the aftermath of its cruelty to the fullest. A win-win situation for it, while everyone else loses. A joke so cruel all are forced to endure its inevitability, with the ending all but certain, death to the survivors and an endless hunt for the killers. Survivors losing themselves, becoming more killer-oriented, and the killers forced to endure the growing resistance and torment from the survivor toxicity. And to the survivors who are still good, the toxic ones will affect, causing them more suffering as they watch themselves also grow into the ones they were against. From good to bad, from bad to toxic, from toxic to killer. The toxic behavior is shown towards the survivors too, with their own teammates in the trial so selfish and focused on themselves, they lead to the deaths of the others to save their own skin. But it gets worse with time, as more aggressive survivors refuse to save others, and instead torment the killers for the thrill. They are in the match for the chaos, not the survival, so the others seeking survival are all going to die. in part because their team let them die, and sometimes directly because of them, as the ones with their emotions taken away lead the killer to the innocent to extend the time they have to cause more mayhem, and the ones we have all seen, griefing the ones on hooks or on the floor, and letting them bleed out for the fun of it. Survivors becoming killers among themselves, towards each other, a cruel twist of fate, eternal suffering for all. Here are some final notes I have. This is the first time I have attempted a video like this, and as such I expect a lot of improvements, which I do ask that you comment below, and I will work on it. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you would like to talk about next. This will be all for now. Expect another video in the next 2 weeks or less. See you in the next one.